Step back in time to the early 1920s when global optimism and wealth were at an all-time high. But then, unexpectedly, the situation shifted. In America, the Great Depression was like a dark and foreboding storm that brought widespread economic misery and a profound sense of hopelessness. The economy as a whole collapsed, with the stock market leading the way. After millions of Americans lost their jobs and homes, they were left with little choice but to rely on charity from the government. The future looked dark, and the American dream seemed to be fading away. Before that, let me remind you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video from us. It was a moment of tremendous difficulty and hardship, but also of fortitude and perseverance. Come with me as we look over how the Great Depression altered the course of American history and society. How did the economic crisis begin in America? The Great Depression was triggered by a financial crisis that began in America in the 1920s. At that time, the economy of America was thriving thanks to rapid industrialization and technical advances that increased output and spread prosperity throughout the country. However, there were several underlying factors that contributed to the catastrophe that was imminent. One of the key factors was the speculative stock market bubble that had built in the years leading up to the crisis. Many traders borrowed money or traded on margin to purchase stocks. The rapid increase in stock prices prompted even more speculative buying. However, investors' decisions to sell off their holdings in the overpriced market produced a domino effect of selling that led to a sharp decline in stock prices. The stock market plummeted on October 29, 1929, popularly known as Black Tuesday, resulting in massive losses for investors. After the stock market crash made people lose faith in the economy, they began withdrawing their savings from banks. However, many financial institutions' stock market investments left them without sufficient reserves to cover any potential losses. As a result, thousands of financial institutions failed and customers lost faith in the banking system. The economic crisis also had a major effect on international trade. America used to be a major exporter, but when production and consumer demand decreased, so too did imports from other countries. The resulting drop in exports had a domino effect on the economy, reducing both output and employment. The worldwide and American economies were severely tested by the Great Depression that began in the 1920s. The aftermath was pervasive poverty, joblessness, and unrest. One of the most significant shifts in economic policy that arose from it was the New Deal, which was implemented to revitalize the economy and aid the needy. The Great Depression continues to have an impact on contemporary economic policies and cultural perspectives. What was the economic crisis during the Great Depression? The Great Depression's economic crisis was not a singular event, but rather a multifaceted phenomenon that had far-reaching effects outside America. Several pivotal occurrences greatly impacted the crisis's intensity and longevity, including stock market disaster. Many people believe that the stock market crash on October 29, 1929, known as Black Tuesday, was the initial cause of the Great Depression. The rapid growth of the stock market over the past few years is largely attributable to investor enthusiasm. When the market began to decline, however, investors began selling their holdings, which triggered a chain reaction of selling that precipitated a precipitous decline in stock prices. Overproduction and underconsumption. America experienced an era of fast industrialization and technological growth just before the Great Depression. This led to a boost in output, but without a matching increase in demand. Businesses were left with large quantities of unsold inventory, leading to lower output, job losses, and reduced customer spending. Bank crisis. Many financial institutions in the 1920s engaged in risky lending practices, such as extending credit to stock market speculators and investors. The stock market crash caused significant losses for many investors, including the pressure on banks to be repaid. However, many financial institutions had made substantial stock market investments and did not have sufficient reserves to offset their losses. As a result, a number of financial institutions collapsed, leading to a widespread loss of customer and investor faith in the banking sector. International trade. The Great Depression affected people all around the world, and the decline in international trade contributed significantly to the escalation of the crisis. Once a major exporter, America has seen its share of global trade decrease as a result of declining customer demand and rising protectionist policies like tariffs. The resulting drop in exports had a domino effect on the economy, reducing both output and employment. Both America and the rest of the world felt the effects of the Great Depression's economic crisis. Extremism on all sides of the political spectrum, social unrest, and record levels of unemployment and poverty all followed. One of the most significant shifts in economic policy that arose from it was the New Deal, which was implemented to revitalize the economy and aid the needy. The Great Depression continues to have an impact on contemporary economic policies and cultural perspectives. Who took the biggest hit during the Great Depression? It is usually accepted that those who were already poor and marginalized in society were the most affected by the Great Depression, despite the fact that the Great Depression had an impact on a wide spectrum of persons and groups. Unemployment and the working class. The unemployment rate in America reached a staggering 25% during the Great Depression, and even for those who were able to keep their jobs, the compensation occasionally dropped. People lost their homes, and many wound up in Hooverville-style shantytowns or on government assistance. Farmers. Even though farmers were struggling with low crop prices and high debt levels before the Great Depression, the economic downturn made their situation much worse. Many farmers in agricultural areas had their problems compounded by the Dust Bowl and their subsequent loss of land and income. Minorities. The Great Depression exacerbated the discrimination and economic hardship that African Americans and other minorities faced even before the economic downturn. People's alienation from government aid projects and the resulting lack of work contributed to rising racial tensions. Women and children. Since many men lost their employment and were unable to provide for their families during the Great Depression, women and children were particularly vulnerable. Many kids dropped out of school and moms worked low-paying jobs to make ends meet. How did people survive the Great Depression? During the Great Depression, when jobs were scarce and basic necessities were often out of reach, people had to get creative in order to make ends meet. Despite the challenges, many people adapted and found ways to deal with their financial issues. Some suggestions are provided here for making it through the Great Depression. Assistance from the government. Several relief programs were established by the federal government to aid the American public during the Great Depression. The Works Progress Administration, WPA, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, were two such programs that helped millions of Americans get employment and raises. During the Great Depression, many people relied on help from their friends and neighbors. The poor and hungry were provided for by churches, charities, and other groups. Families sometimes had to work together in urban areas, and the sight of people waiting on bread lines and in soup kitchens became ubiquitous. Some people during the Great Depression resorted to bartering and trading in order to get by. Farmers, for instance, may sell their produce in return for other goods, and individuals may barter their tailoring or carpentry skills for a meal or other essentials. Many people became more self-sufficient during the Great Depression by learning how to cultivate their own food, raise their own animals, and make their own clothes. They were able to cut costs and become less reliant on outside sources as a result of this. Ingenuity and resourcefulness. During the Great Depression, individuals were challenged to be creative and resourceful in order to make do with less. Things that break can be fixed instead of thrown away, and old clothes can be made into quilts. How was the Great Depression solved? The Great Depression ended thanks in large part to government action, economic policies, technological advances, international cooperation, and the stimulus of World War II. President Franklin D. Roosevelt implemented his New Deal policies in the 1930s to aid the economy and working poor and unemployed. Demand for military goods and services increased after America entered into World War II in 1941, leading to the development of new jobs and an increase in economic growth. Policies on both the fiscal and monetary fronts were enacted to help the economy. The lessons learned then continued to inform contemporary social and economic policy. Overall, the Great Depression was a very difficult time in American history. Extreme poverty, social unrest, and international unpredictability marked the era. However, it also sparked reforms in economic policy, social attitudes, and international collaboration that have had and continue to have a profound impact on our contemporary world. The Great Depression was a tough period, but it also showed how people can overcome adversity and change with the times. Government aid, community solidarity, individual initiative, and ingenuity all played roles in people's eventual success in the face of adversity. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.